Tonight on Firebase, land of the free, home of the brave, I'm your host, Gary French. On this program tonight, we talk with two gentlemen who believe that very statement. They are indeed believers of freedom, and they are brave. One is a television producer, Jack Lefebvre, and the other is an attorney from Ohio by the name of Tom Renz. Stay tuned. Well, welcome. We are in the studio this evening with Jack Lefebvre. And from the introduction I've just given, you know a little bit about what the program is about this evening and the direction we're headed. Jack, I want to welcome you here to the studio and need to ask you just a little bit about your background, if you don't mind sharing that with our audience.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me in studio. It's nice to actually be with you at the table as opposed to being over there.
Yeah. And folks, you notice that we brought our coffee with us as well. So firebasecoffee.com. All right. I know that sounds ridiculous. Okay, go ahead, brother.
I love Firebase. So a little bit about me is I am a media producer, freelance filmmaker. Moved to Kentucky about 13 years ago now. Moved from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've got that nasal kind of Wisconsin voice, so I don't quite sound Kentuckian.
No, it's like Wisconsin. That's sort of like a media mogul area or something.
Well, it's close to Chicago.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm a Midwest guy. Sometimes I miss the lake up there. It's kind of like having an ocean in your backyard.
Yeah. So. Well, one of the things that I find for me fascinating is that you and I were introduced about a year ago at the Kentucky Truth Summit, which was dealing with doctors, healthcare professionals, victims of the vaccine coming together. And folks, you can still see that on a lot of you can go back to YouTube and other places. And you can go to Kentucky Truth Summit. I think there's a website. Yes. And people can see what was going on. And that was a over 9-hour streaming event of tremendous information of how I want to say demonic the effect of the government is in trying to push people to follow mandates, and I think that's terrible. But from that is how we got introduced. But we're here today to talk about Kentucky Stands Up. And would you share with the audience what Kentucky Stands Up is all about? What's the mission? What's the purpose?
Sure. Well, Kentucky Stands Up really came together during the COVID mandates and all the lockdowns. And that's when we really kind of took off. And it came from other people, from other patriot groups, Tea Party, some other groups that came together that came together and realized, listen, these COVID mandates, this medical tyranny, as you described it, is wrong, right? All these mask mandates, the shots, I won't call them vaccines, the protocols for treating in the hospitals, that was all forced on people. And that violated people's rights. It violated real law, and it violated its own emergency use authorization. I mean, just the act that made those available to people,
right,
itself stated you couldn't. It was only optional. And it went from that to you have to do this to keep your job if you're a pilot or a nurse.
Even recently, the Florida Surgeon General, we did a show on recently that came out and it says that the vaccine, not just the mandates, but the vaccine itself, even the current new and improved, is anti-human because of all of the stuff, is the best way I can put it, that's gone into it, is just dangerous to the human body.
Well, I'm not an expert, obviously, like Dr. Rutherford and those that participated in the Truth Summit,
yeah,
Dr. McCullough.
Peter McCullough.
Yeah, exactly. But we do know the spike proteins are not good for us. We also know that there's data that it might actually interfere with DNA in your body. It targets your own immune system, which is why personally, and this is anecdotal, but people that I know have taken vaccines are more sick than not now.
Yeah.
Right. And then we find out from Pfizer after the fact, we never tested it to see if it would protect you against COVID. We just had to move at the speed of science. And that pretty much tells you everything right there.
Well, the speed of science in this regard is a guy by the name of Fauci. Fauci, you got to mask up, mask. And he got rich out of this. And that's mine. That's not Jack. That's not anybody else. That's not from any research, folks. That's just my summation on that. Well, tell us a little bit about what are you hoping to achieve with Kentucky Stands Up? What are some things that you're hoping to find out? Or I know you've got an event coming up here pretty soon.
Yes, we have a fundraiser on October 21st, Saturday night at Beans Cafe in Dry Ridge, Kentucky. And we'll get back to that, but let's get back to the focus of what Kentucky Stands Up wants to do.
Awesome.
So we recognize that any change, any good change that can stop this madness going on in our country and in the world at large has to start locally. We have to start getting back into the ways of producing our own food, raising our own livestock. So we have classes on canning, on like just do-it-yourselfness, homesteading.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of education going on, building this community, almost like a parallel community, right? Because we see the dollar as being, the inflation is killing the dollar. We see what's going on with the BRICS nations and all that. We see our policy is just we're driving our currency down to nothing.
Yeah, Jack, this sounds like the counter to the swamp, the counter to the what is it, the shadow government in Washington, D.C.?
Well, that's the thing. Washington, D.C. isn't going to revamp itself or save us. We need to start back at our local community and change our local communities, then change our state, use the power of the state. Somehow we've got it flipped, how it used to be the states had the power.
Yeah, 10th Amendment.
Right, and now all of a sudden it's a centralized government that starts, as we see with COVID, starts mandating, demanding, buying off, bribing.
Yeah,
it has to start in the local community, which means
I love that. I really like that. That hits a strong chord. It really reverberates. And are you having any headway? Are you making headway in this endeavor?
Yes. We've got a lot of support groups for people that have, especially since COVID, have left the government school systems and gone to homes like homeschooling or home co-ops or private schools. So we've got support groups for that to help people. Because that's a transition if you're used to just sending your kids to school. I think after COVID hit, I think the homeschooling community as a whole doubled just that 1 year.
It did. We did a show on that probably 2 years ago. And I think, Jonathan, somewhere down a couple of years ago, we did a show, and it was just exponential, the growth that was there. And that follows the lead of all of these Hollywood actors leaving Hollywood because that's the big issue to them. Not only do they want to have a little bit of anonymity, but they want to be able to have their children in a common sense school, and they're doing the homeschool. What's the benefit, if I may ask that, just the benefit that you're seeing of people saying we're taking our own control and doing homeschooling and getting rid of these egregious mandates or whatever?
Well, I think, and I'm coming from this group, this movement, is we're building a sense of community with like-minded folks, and we're understanding, okay, we're hearing a bunch of nonsense or just lies, and that's not truth. And, coming from media, I've worked with some large media companies, associations, and I've worked with some people who are on television. And I recognize being behind the camera and behind the talent, because they are talent. They're actors, right? They're actors. Right. They're not smart usually. They're just reading lines.
I've heard interviews of these actors sometimes, and you're absolutely right.
I'm just, again, we speak truth on the Firebase, so I'm just being truthful.
I'm just saying.
But it's building a sense of community that says, you know what, that's nonsense. That's incorrect. That's not compatible with my view, and we're supposed to be tolerant of other people's views. Well, that's a two-way street, tolerance street. It's not like, okay, we have to be tolerant of your view. No, it's tolerant of all views, which means that you don't need to demonize maybe Trump supporters just because they vote a certain way and make them an enemy. That's not how this country was founded and put together.
Yeah, that's right. Well, our founding fathers, I think, really had it right, and they were intentional on the Judeo-Christian values and a worldview. And I agree with you. That's one of the things that really helps us to understand is that the tolerance is indeed a two-way street. And I'll give you an example. Just because I believe and I know in my heart that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life doesn't mean that I'm going to go attack my neighbor if they've got an alternate lifestyle or an alternate view. I want to win them through the love of Christ. Well, what do you hope to achieve from the Kentucky Stands Up?
Right. Well, we want to work with, and like a lot of our folks and we meet weekly. So again, it's a local network of support group, of education, of resources, medical freedom, parallel systems, bartering. Right back in the day, you'd go to the store, the general store, and you might bring something to trade for something else. It wasn't always $1. So I think building that local barter community between each other, supporting each other, helping each other, bringing that sense of community back, not a global community, but it's not one size fits all, and that never works.
Yeah,
It's
you're not
gotta
talking a
be-
one world order.
Right. It's got to be tailored for your community, for your specific needs. So,
Yeah.
and many of our members, they come from the Democrat Party, they come from the Republican Party. That's just, it's not even trying to be political. It's just like, listen, this is how we should live, right? We should be able
That's
to
awesome.
make choices. We should be able to school our children or take our children out of government schools and put in a private school or whatever,
Yeah.
based on what we feel is proper for our family.
Yeah.
So it's really building that community together.
Yeah. Jack, we've got about 30 seconds here. How can people find out a little bit more about Kentucky Stands Up, and tell them about the October 21st event?
Sure. Well, our website is kentuckystandsup.org. Email is info@kentuckystandsup.org. Feel free to check out the website, email us. And then the fundraiser is to help raise funds for education, for lobbying, for educational programs
Awesome.
here in Kentucky.
Awesome. Folks, we'll be right back. Jack will still be here, and we'll be talking to attorney Tom Renz. Welcome back. Glad you've decided to stay with Firebase this evening. And most of all, friends, I'm glad that you are here watching us. We always like to target the lies that we hear in society by firing for effect with God's truth. In the first segment, we spent some time with Jack Lefebvre as we talked about Kentucky Stands Up. Now we want to welcome to the show attorney Tom Renz from Ohio. Found out a little bit about him. I've not met him, not had that pleasure, but we'll have that on October the 21st. Former football player as well. And I immediately liked him. And then the second thing that I really liked about him, he says, I will not lie. I like that. Tom, welcome to our show this evening.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to coming down to Kentucky.
Yeah, I tell you what, it depends where you are in Kentucky. A lot of people don't like folks from Ohio, but I'm happy that somebody of your caliber and your standards would come down. Listen, one of the things that attracted me when Jack had introduced me, or you're giving your name to me, was one of the things, or two things. One, you're standing up against the egregious mask mandates from the federal government, and I really just call that a plandemic. And the other part was about the mRNA technology and the big concern. Would you just tell us a little bit of how you, as an attorney, got involved in taking a stand against the federal government? Big drum roll there.
Yeah, God. The short answer is God, right? So I was working on a master's of health science randomly. I'm 46 years old, and for no apparent reason, in my mid 40s, I decided to get another master's, and in a field that I wasn't super interested in, right? But I was working on a master's when COVID came out, so I started writing on this COVID disease, and by the time they got to the lockdowns, I knew that everything that the media had reported was a lie. And when I say I knew it, I mean I had court quality evidence that I could show you that indicated it was a lie. So when they decided that they were going to put the entire country under house arrest for 14 days to flatten the curve without any due process, that really, as an attorney, was not okay with me, especially for something that wasn't real. So I sat in this very chair. I prayed and I said, God, I believe you want me to fight this. If you put it before me, I'll do my best. Now, mind you, I had no money, no contacts. I'm a nobody from a little town in Ohio. I didn't even have a client. I had literally nothing, but I felt like God wanted me to do it, so I prayed. And, he did want me to fight it. And that fight went from the lockdowns and masks and that sort of stuff to the vaccines and that sort of stuff to recognition that the people who were behind the lies in COVID were the same people funding lies elsewhere. And so now I'm fighting the freedom fight across the board. My job is to fight against corruption, to fight bad guys, to fight for freedom, to fight for unity under the banner of freedom, and for God, family, country. And that's what I do every day.
Amen. I have a dear friend named Brandon Trosclair who's running for Secretary of State down in Louisiana, and he owns a chain of grocery stores. And he He took a stand against the vaccine mandate because of the number of employees that he has. And he thought there'd be a whole bunch of people involved in this, standing with him and supporting him. And he quickly discovered he was the only guy. And praise God, it went to the Supreme Court and he won. When you got on this journey, did you see a great groundswell of support and people coming along, or you just like, good luck, buddy?
Oh, I mean, when I started this fight, so I started day one. Everybody was, oh, it's just 14 days to flatten the curve. I couldn't get another attorney in the country to take a call from me. Not one. I mean, literally anywhere. I finally found an old warhorse who became a good buddy to me. Warhorse of an attorney named Bob Gargis up in Ohio. Good man, because still a great friend to me. And he decided to jump on. So we filed our first case back in September of 2020. And I want to tell you, by September 2020, we had everything that we needed to shut down the entirety of the COVID thing, the vaccines, everything else. We put evidence in the court under penalty of perjury. I lost my license if I lied about it. Court documents showed this whole thing was fraud. Masks don't work. PCR tests don't work. The whole thing. We proved it. And the case was so strong that it put me on the map nationally. Like I said, I'm a nobody, right? We then we had some very interesting things happen. And what I can tell you is that the Sixth Circuit recognized that the judge in that case had an ex parte meeting with the governor's lawyers that he wasn't supposed to have. And after that meeting, the case was changed quite a bit. He changed all sorts of things. And so we ended up having to withdraw that case before it got to judgment to preserve it, because I didn't think that it was going to, there was a lot of reasons for it. Our clients and I decided to do that. But that happened. So we would have shut the whole thing down with that. But there was that ex parte meeting, which is, it was improper according to the Sixth Circuit. And the good news was, though, is that at the same time, we were able to get legislation passed in Ohio, and we were able to override Governor DeWine's veto on it, that ended his emergency powers being what they were. So we ended up winning in the political realm before we were able to win in the court realm on that. But it was a very lonely thing. There was nobody. I mean, I couldn't find doctors. I couldn't find lawyers. I couldn't find anybody that was speaking out at that time. But God's got an interesting way of using there's no glory in pounding a nail in with a hammer.
Yeah.
So I liken myself to pounding a nail in with a broken screwdriver. I am the wrong tool for the job. Right. But that case was really what kicked off the fight back against COVID fraud, because we laid it out in indisputable terms. And, Bobby and Children's Health Defense picked up on it. Make Americans Free Again really got going. They were involved in that case. We got the different groups all over, including, Kentucky was involved in this. You get Kentucky, I got good people. I've been down to Kentucky. We argued some stuff down there. We've done a bunch of stuff down there. I got a great group of people who've been very supportive and who are wonderful down in Kentucky. And we've been able to do a lot of stuff. But Jonathan, you want to know what's amazing? The most important thing I'm going to say in this interview is that I'm a nobody. And the reason that's the most important thing is because a nobody made a difference. The reason that a lot of this stuff is happening, I just had someone reach out to me last week and said, "Hey, how does it feel to know that you were involved with starting a global movement?" I said, "What?" And they started kind of laid out, I started, and I am a nobody from a little town in Ohio, but I fought like hell and I fought fearlessly before God and before man. I've taken more arrows than I think anybody will ever know. At the end of the day, though, we made a difference, and nobody made a difference. And I hope everybody hears that.
And I think that they will. One of the things that I've learned from 35 years in ministry and being in public service and doing different things is that there's a lot of people who will not allow the Bible to stand in the way of what they believe. And it sounds like you've encountered a lot of people that will not allow the Constitution to stand in the way of what they want to push.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that goes with the egregious mandates and the vaccine. And one of the things, we've only got about 90 seconds before we wrap this segment up, is like, we've been talking, or Jack and I were talking earlier about the World Economic Forum. What's going on with that, and what's happening? Is there a push for centralized control and to subvert our sovereignty as a nation?
Well, they are. I mean, they're behind putting the mRNA in the food supply. They're behind putting the mRNA in everything. They're involved with pushing for digital currencies, for pushing for global governance, for pushing for. I mean, a lot of the wars that are happening right now, you know, they're pulling strings behind the scenes, and we can tie this all together. I have paperwork on this. Understand that when I tell you I've got something, I mean court quality evidence. Now, we've got the stuff, but we've got to make sure that people know about it so that we can do something with it. So the World Economic Forum is one of the most evil entities on the planet, in my opinion, and something we got to fight against.
I agree with that. And in about 15 seconds, what are you hoping to achieve?
Freedom.
Amen.
God's will.
I like that very much so. Before we finish up this segment here, Jack, is there anything you'd like to share real quickly? We're going to have a closing segment with you and I will, but anything you'd like to share real quickly?
Well, an army of nobodies is a force to reckon with, and we need to remember that and keep it in mind.
Yeah. Folks, we'll be right back after this short break. We've had a great time this evening. Don't go anywhere. You want to hear how we wrap this up tonight. Welcome back. Wow, what a quick show we've had this evening. We've spent the evening talking with Jack Lefebvre and then also with attorney Tom Rentz from Ohio. Jack, what a quick show this has been. I think that it's been, for me, interesting, entertaining, but also very informative. As we've talked about, Kentucky Stands Up, and then spending some time with Tom Rentz as he's talking about his fight against the federal government and against the lies that are coming out. What has been your reaction to the first time that you met him to bring you to where you are right now?
Sure. Well, I mean, early on, back when he started raising his hand and saying this is illegal, he didn't mention this, but he had whistleblower data of vaccine injured from the military, from the Department of Defense. Yeah. I mean, and like he said, he's got court documents, like legit documenting all this. And the fact that the media just wanted to downplay it or not even address it. Really, these days, they won't even address anything counter to the narrative.
I know. It's like if you do counter to the narrative, they shout you down, they call you a racist or a bigot, or they say that you're narrow-minded or you're not tolerant. And here's, to me, is the most dangerous of all. In our free society, the Bill of Rights, the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, there are entities out there that will shadow ban you, that will close you down, that will just say, we don't want to hear that person's voice. He's run that risk as a professional, as an attorney, hasn't he?
Yes, along with all the doctors and nurses that we've met that spoke up against it, all the pilots that spoke up against it. Yeah. I mean,
UPS pilots,
not just UPS, Southwest, Delta. I mean, there's an army out there, and they're being suppressed, and they're being silenced, and they're being canceled. That doesn't mean they're not out there. It just means that the TV doesn't want to tell you about it.
Yeah, and when they talk about, and I love how several years ago we heard this phrase, fake news. Doesn't it seem like, and this is just two guys talking, doesn't it seem like there is an overt push to only present or report on what's good from a leftist point of view?
I don't know if it's leftist or just the state's point of view.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I mean, a lot of mirroring going on to Germany in the early 30s.
Yeah, look up Eric Metaxas on his book about Dietrich Bonhoeffer and all of the things that went on there. Hitler got control of the church, thereby controlling the public. Then he got control of the media, and he was able to quiet everything. And that's how he, a despot came into power in that area. And part of it is when common sense for us, I'm going to say common sense Americans, but in the 1930s, common sense Germans, when they just chose to be silent. There's a danger in being silent. Well, my friend, having said that, in the last minute or so here, we've got an event coming up on the 21st of October there in Dry Ridge, Kentucky. Tell our folks about it.
Yep. Beans Cafe, 6 p.m. in Dry Ridge. Tom is going to be speaking. Dr. Molly Rutherford, our friend, is going to be speaking. We're going to have an auction with some products and specialized services. I think we're going to have a little coffee there, I think. But raise money, again, for action plans, for education, for supporting and pushing our local communities here in Kentucky. And we're asking all of our Patriot friends and all the audience, come out. There's a $5 cover to get in. And then you get some good food at Beans. Mm-hmm. Then you can listen to Molly and Tom speak. And then you can have a fun auction, help raise money. Goldback's a sponsor. Firebase is a sponsor. We've got some other sponsors. Come out, meet Tom, hear Dr. Molly if you haven't heard her speak before. And just jump into this network.
I tell you, one of the things that I really love about Dr. Molly Rutherford is that she knows the inside scoop to Fauci.
Yeah, she worked under him.
I tell you what, folks, if you want to hear some teeth-rattling truth, you'll want to be at this event. Well, friends, we appreciate you being with us here on Firebase this evening. We want you to know that we always tell the truth and we fire for effect with God's word by targeting the lies. Until next week. Thanks for watching this most recent episode. Click below the like button. Provide any comments that you like. Also, we will get back to you as soon as we can after you write to us at P.O. Box 39, Perry Park, Kentucky, 40363. Also, let us know if you like really good coffee, and we'll send that out to you as soon as we possibly can. What's the name of the coffee? Firebase.